Good morning to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Time for your hurricane outlook and discussion. I'm going to tell you what, this is a busy map. I just got up a little while ago. I was like, all right, Monday morning, let's see what's going on in the tropics. And look at this. I was like, wait a minute. Did I accidentally sleep for 60 days? And it's August 14th? Nope, it's June 14th, 2021. And look at this. We've got three areas to monitor if we look at it on the expanded graphical tropical weather outlook. Wow, one system down here in the Bay of Campeche, another system just off of the coast of North Carolina, my home state where I live, and then another one way down here in the eastern tropical Atlantic. And there's actually a third tropical wave in the islands here that's not mentioned, and it doesn't need to be, but I'll show you that on satellite imagery in just a moment. So very, very busy here for mid-June. And, you know, what happened? Why is this happening all of a sudden so fast? We'll get into that in just a moment. First, a little bit of climatology for you. You know, it's mid-June. It's not mid-August. And that being said, yes, this part of the Atlantic basin over here is where we would see most of the action. So anything in this part of the world, not unexpected. Okay, that would be fine. But development potentially off the coast of Africa for mid-June, no, you are not expecting to see that at all. This area off the coast there all the way over to the islands, you know, is blank, you know, for this part of June, the 11th through the 20th, this 10-day time frame. The middle 10 days of June, no, you're not supposed to see development in the deep tropics because usually you have dry air, sinking air, dusty air, cooler water temperatures out this way, a more stable environment, and tropical waves that come off of Africa out here usually die out, stay dry. They're not very prevalent. They're not very robust with deep convection or anything like that. And they just move across, maybe ending up in the Gulf or the Caribbean, or as you see all these clusters of development areas over the past, you know, many, many years in the southeastern Pacific, they develop there. But nevertheless, we do have a system out here in the deep tropics, and let's just go ahead and get on with it. All right, let's look at these one by one. So this first system out in the eastern tropical Atlantic is a strong tropical wave. That's an easterly wave of low pressure and energy, vorticity, moisture. It's a seedling, and it's moving off the coast of Africa, and it's disorganized right now, but some development is possible before dry air and strong upper level winds limit development later on. It has a 10% chance over the next 2 days, 20 over the next 5. I think that it'll be higher than that when all is said and done, and I'll show you my reasoning for that in just a moment. Meanwhile, right off the coast of North Carolina, a cold front moved offshore recently. I'll be able to show you that on satellite animation in a moment. We have a well-defined area of low pressure just offshore. We've seen this happen many times over the years. These fronts come off over the warm waters of the Gulf Stream. You develop these areas of vorticity or energy, just a small pocket of concentrated energy, and a small surface low will develop, compact, very tight, and boom, it can ramp up very quickly, and it can be a problem for mariners, anybody leaving out of the Hatteras Inlet, Ocracoke area, the Outer Banks, you know, all that's part of the Outer Banks. You know, this is why a long time ago, ships would get into trouble off this area. It's called the graveyard of the Atlantic for a reason, and this could go on to become a named storm later today as it moves off into the Atlantic waters there, eventually away from the United States over colder water south of Nova Scotia, but a very intriguing system nevertheless. I didn't see it coming. I thought, oh, okay, some energy coming off the coast. But there you go, these small, sneaky little systems on fronts, cold fronts, especially in the summertime over the warm waters of the Gulf Stream, can sneak up on you. That's why they're called sneaky. Then we have Invest Area 92L. And by the way, let me just label this real quick. This is 92L right here in the Bay of Campeche. This one's actually 93L off the coast of North Carolina. And I think eventually this one will be 94, Invest Area 94, L to B, so we'll put a question mark there, out in the eastern Atlantic. So a lot of activity here as we start the week. So the system in the Bay of Campeche, which is the one we were really most interested in for the last several days, has now kind of taken a back seat, if you will, because of these other systems. It certainly has been crowded out by the attention given to these other two features. So what we have here is just a broad area of low pressure gradually developing over the next couple of days, and a tropical depression might form late in the week as it moves into somewhere in this region of the west central Gulf of Mexico. Big rainmaker coming up from that system, no matter how the wind or the pressure gets, the intensity part, it's still going to bring a lot of rainfall, so we have to keep that in mind going forward. So again, not expecting development out here this time of year, and I think that easternmost system is the most intriguing in terms of what it means for the rest of the season. So let's look at all of these features one by one on the satellite shot here. There's the tropical wave, giant piece of energy coming off the coast of Africa. We saw this coming in the modeling going back to March, just like last year. The modeling, the climate models suggesting much more concentrated upward motion over the coast of Africa and Africa itself this season, favoring these strong tropical waves. And so there you go. And that is a sign that the models basically have it right. I mean, here we are mid-June. I mean, look, check the calendar one more time, June 14th. Not August 14th, not July 14th. And there you go. Strong system, lots of moisture associated with it now. But up to the north up here, there is the Saharan air layer, and the atmosphere out here is more stable. The farther west it tracks, but there is a nice solid area of energy out there. I'll show it to you on the vorticity signature in just a moment. Then we got a tropical wave trying to flare up here that's moving through, and having moved through the Windward Islands. Strong upper level winds generally will prevent this from developing much further, but bringing some showers and thunderstorms as we speak through that area. It shouldn't be much more than just a wind shift. A few gusty winds, speaking of wind shifts, as it passes. I mean, it's an easterly wave of low pressure. There is energy down there. It's a seedling, yes, but environmental conditions are not going to allow it to do much more than what you see there. Then we have 93L up here off of the coast of North Carolina. We'll zoom in and take a look at this in just a moment closer. And then 92L down in the Bay of Campeche. Generally just limited convection, shower and thunderstorm activity, impacting any of the oil platforms down in that region, and that's about it. Maybe some of the coastal areas, some heavy rain, and we'll certainly watch this as it evolves, but I'm not seeing much in the way of aggressive development. So you folks up here along the Gulf Coast, yes, a big rainmaker is possible and likely, to be honest with you, but beyond that, I still don't know the outcome. It's going to be hard. These things can ramp up quickly, as we saw. I mean, my goodness, look at 93L over here, how fast this has come into play. So you never know, but it's going to be a slow process. We have several days to watch. And I know we've been watching this overall pattern of this big cyclonic gyre and all that, the Central American gyre and everything we've been talking about related to that for like a week now. But hold on a little while longer as we see how the end game of this finally comes together. All right, so let's look at the vorticity signature of our different players here. This one's too far to the east, and I should have gotten a farther east shot to show you. My apologies, but we'll keep an eye on this as it slides into the frame over the next day or two. There's the vorticity signature along this front. There's your frontal system right there, and these just like little pockets of energy that develop. This one's way up over colder water, so it's definitely non-tropical. But this wins out as being tropical because it is over warm water. The Gulf Stream there, 80, 81 degrees Fahrenheit. You've got a warm core. I'll show you a radar image of it in just a minute. And it's attached to this front. It's one of these sort of hybrid, weird systems that is small in its synoptic scale size. It's not one of these large tropical systems that you see like the one off of Africa, but it counts. It does. It might be surprising, but even if it is surprising, doesn't mean that it does not count. And then you've got the vorticity signature, the energy signature down there in the Bay of Campeche, and we can watch this as it evolves. Again, I love this particular graphic because it can kind of show you the bones of the system, so to speak. You can see through the clouds. You see the energy that lies below. A very helpful way to discern that. All right, over at the weathernerds.org site, zoomed in shot here of 93L. And here's the coast of North Carolina. Yeah, right offshore. This system attached to the front, but developing some banding features. I mean, clearly you can see that. Counterclockwise rotation to it, lightning out there with it, over the warm waters of the Gulf Stream, no doubt about it. And this is what it looks like from the radar perspective. This is the radar scope out of Morehead City. And, I mean, there you go. You know, it's a tight little low-pressure area. Some rain showers off of the North Carolina Outer Banks, moving away, and this will continue to move away. And the day will get better along the Outer Banks. Clouds and showers, those will move away. But there it is, you know, and if this becomes a named storm later today, don't be surprised, and it's absolutely legit. You know, it's one of these weird systems. You get tropical development from tropical waves, upper-level low-pressure areas, stalled fronts, and this is part of that. You know, this, and you can even get them from mesoscale convective systems, large thunderstorm complexes that move off the United States. Hurricane Danny in 1997 developed from something like that. We've seen this. I think Arthur in 2014 developed from a cluster of storms and vorticity that came off of the southeastern United States and became a Category 2 hurricane cutting across the Outer Banks up here. I was in the eye of Arthur. So the development of these systems are not all exclusive to just deep tropical waves. And this is a prime example of that, sort of one of these hybrid systems, not typical, but nevertheless, there it is. And it is situated over warm water. Look, 26, 27 Celsius in the water temperature department. That's 80, 81 degrees, no doubt. So it's over tropical water. The latent heat, the energy is there. And that water, the Gulf Stream, of course, is moving underneath it. So you got a constant supply of warm water, and it shouldn't be any surprise. We've seen this before. It is unusual, but there it is. So again, any mariners heading out from Hatteras Inlet and vicinity, the fishing fleets out there, any pleasure boats, you guys, I know you're waking up probably thinking, what the heck? So just keep an eye on this. Be very aware of it. Anomalies-wise, the water temperature anomalies, you know, a little bit warmer than average to right where they should be in the main development region. But this area right off the coast of Africa, a little bit warmer. I mean, you can see that it's almost a degree Celsius. And then you've got the very warm Gulf of Guinea down here, providing more moisture and energy, upward motion, if you will. Kind of a drier pattern to the north because of the cooler sea surface temperature anomalies. Remember, these are departures from the average, departures from normal, not actual sea surface temperatures. And so unless it's blue, and really deep blue over here on the left side of the scale, like this, you know, the Atlantic's pretty much where it should be. Just a few areas in here that are slightly below average. Everything else is generally right at or slightly warmer, whereas the Pacific as a whole over here, on average, is running below average. That sounded weird. Except for this one area here in the eastern part of what we call the ENSO regions. But as I'll talk about later in the week, I think we're seeing some changes developing out here eventually, especially in the subsurface, and we might be headed back towards a pattern. Let me get my blue out here, where this starts to shift back to a more bluish look or cold anomalies as we get towards August. It's going to be a slow process, but I do see changes on the way. All right, so speaking of changes, wow, I didn't think I'd be showing a full Atlantic map here for the GFS this early in the season, but here we are. GFS 850 millibars from the 6Z guidance this morning. I'm putting this thing out early. Usually I have to do these maps and updates and whatever in the afternoon, but here we are. So what do we got? What do we got out there? Let me outline just a few things of interest. Big, large area, subtropical ridge sitting out here. Huge bubble of air. There's the tiny vorticity signature of 93L. There's the vorticity signature of 92L. And there's the pocket of energy and larger heat energy and vorticity and overall cyclonic turning with our tropical wave, eventually 94L, I would venture to guess. Those are the chess pieces. Let's put this into motion and see how stuff plays out one at a time. Let's just go out in 24-hour increments. So by 24 hours, what would possibly be Bill right there does move away. Still attached to the front. You can see all that vorticity stretched out linearly. But along there, yes, there's that little cyclone. Absolutely. And I know some people will hem and haw about it, that, oh, that's not legitimate. Well, BS, it is. I showed you the science behind it. It's not classic. And even though it's not classic, it does count, all right? And especially when you have marine activity out here, ships, I talked about that. It's important for them to know what's going on. And it's a small system, and it'll move on out into the Atlantic and eventually be a non-entity. Meanwhile, in the Bay of Campeche, not much change with 92L. But this little pocket down here, yeah, we'll keep watching that. So let's go out another 24 hours to 48. How do things look? Well, what would be Bill or whatever, 93L, gone. No worries anymore. Trough of low pressure down here with 92L. Concentrated vorticity stuck over Mexico, so some rain showers and whatnot, but not getting organized very quickly. And then there's the other system, the tropical wave, south of this huge area of high pressure, and, you know, kind of just chugging off to the west there with time, going on out now to 72 hours. Now, this system gets a little bit more interesting. The wind barbs sharpening up a little bit more there, trying to concentrate its energy and develop further. Not much more going on with the system in the Gulf, the southern Gulf. So that's good news, but a big rainmaker for sure. 96 hours. Now the one in the Gulf starts to concentrate a little bit more. So I think it'll be more organized, maybe on its way to becoming a depression by Friday. Then, what about this guy? A small, well-organized tropical wave by that time, south of this just unbelievably stout ridge of high pressure. Later in the season, this will just send these systems onto the west with a lot of gusto, as you would say. I mean, that is really impressive for June 18th. You know, if we saw this August 18th, we'd be like, yep, makes sense, you know, par for the course. For June 18th, this really is unheard of. It's pretty early to see this. So if we go on out, it starts to weaken and lose its definition at day 5. But look what happens in that same time frame. And let me just hold on. Let me slow down. There's the feature there. What's left of it. So it might try to develop some through here. Its best shot is right through here, it looks like. And then upper level winds, dry air, and so forth will catch up. You folks in the islands, yes, this will eventually pass through and bring some sensible weather you can feel. You know, rain showers, gusty winds, that kind of thing. But no, not going to develop into a hurricane or anything like that. I would say it's almost next to impossible. You never say never in the weather, but I wouldn't worry about that. The tropical wave part alone could bring some showers and thunderstorms and some gusty winds. Now, let's look at this, because all of a sudden that does look interesting by day 5 coming into Louisiana. Sorry, Cajuns down there, not my fault. It's just, I'm just telling you what's happening. So let's zoom in on it and back it up just a little bit. What happens between days 4 and 5? Well, it tries to pull itself together, elongated there. You can see that. But coming into the coast, big rainmaker for Louisiana where you absolutely don't need it. And the real big key here, does this look better organized than what we're seeing here in terms of a wind and potential storm surge impact, coastal flooding? The more concentrated this becomes, and this is not that concentrated looking, large wind maker, broad wind field. Yes, there will be some coastal inundation, 2 or 3 feet maybe, sure, and some heavy rain and some banded showers and thunderstorms over an area, pretty much all of Louisiana, where you just don't need it. So heads up for that as we get in towards the weekend. The key, though, like I said, and if we just look here like at hour 1:08, this is valid Friday afternoon. You got a lot of energy spread out over a fairly large area. If this bundles up and is more focused, this could be stronger wind and pressure-wise, the intensity part, than what we're seeing in the modeling right now. If we look at it just real quick on the precip side of things, there we go. You can see most of the energy, the precip, kind of out in front. I really do think the key to this will be that vorticity signature, and we will watch it using this graphic especially, and we do have a few days, but you folks there along the northern Gulf Coast, I wish I had better news for you, but kind of a rainy pattern from Florida Panhandle westward towards Louisiana, potentially as we head towards the weekend. I will be talking about this more and more throughout the next few days. Speaking of talking about it, every morning I put together an audio podcast for you called Hurricane Season, the podcast, available right here wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe to it, and it'll pop up in your feed each and every morning. It's usually pretty short, just a few minutes, over, kind of an overview of what I'm looking at for the day ahead. And then I put together the hurricane outlook and discussion here. Didn't have a graphic and thumbnail ready. My staff that helps me with that, of volunteers, mind you, they help out on their own, like, hey, whenever we have time, and they were all busy. And I'm like, I got to get an update out. So I just went ahead and threw the logo up for today. But we do the hurricane outlook and discussion later in the day, usually, and it's much more in-depth, obviously, because I can show you stuff. But yeah, get on the podcast there, subscribe to it, and each and every morning during the hurricane season, I'll give you a little digest of what I'm looking at for the day ahead. All right, that is it from me for now. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks for watching and tuning in. I'll be back with a lot more for you tomorrow.